Excuse the noise. I'm in COVID isolation housing, and it's very loud outside. The best storytellers know how to play with tension. They're able to hold the audience captive until that very last moment of release. For centuries, playwrights, composers, poets, and all sorts of other writers have used this simple but effective tool to elevate their pieces to a whole new level. Take, for example, the finale of Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. In this piece, he builds tension by removing the melody from the harmonic context of the song. Brass play these huge sweeping chords that seem to fly through sections of the orchestra. The strings play this repeating ostinato filled with anxiety. And as it reaches the climax, he puts in a fortissimo cymbal that brings the melody back in, taking us home. Now, this idea of resolution has similar effects outside of a musical context. It still brings a sense of rest, a sense of settling. It is these rises and falls in tension that add energy to a story. They create a dynamic and engaging flow, and no one is doing this better currently than Jesse Armstrong, creator and writer of HBO's hit dark comedy Succession. The tension in the show is often surrounding the ever-changing relationships between the characters, or them withholding information or choosing when to reveal it. And the best episodes and scenes of Succession are all about shifting power dynamics. It's hot. To convey these often complex mergers and negotiations and all other sorts of business deals, Armstrong has to make sure that his characters' motives are clear and realistic. It is then the actor's job to translate those motives and beliefs through their performances, making sure they stay true to what their character would do. And while some may act like they have power because their character may believe it, the true dynamic is revealed through the editing. So let's take a closer look. I'm going to be dissecting a pivotal scene from Return, Season 2, Episode 7, in which two of the Roy siblings, Shiv and Roman, travel to the UK to meet with her mother. They've come to cut a deal with her, trying to buy her out of the family-owned, multi-billion-dollar media conglomerate, Waystar Royco. But she isn't the type of person to just settle for the first offer thrown her way, especially when it's coming from her scheming ex-husband, who also happens to be the CEO of Waystar Royco. Now, I love this scene because it showcases what Succession does best, the tension-filled verbal battles. However, because of the setting and the circumstances, being, two kids and a mom, that tone is brought down a bit, and it's a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more comfortable. And this creates a pretty interesting dynamic as it plays out through that. So let's jump into the sequence. The first thing I want to talk about is shadow cuts. So shadow cuts refer to the changes made to an edit between the rough cut and the final version of the scene. And obviously we don't have the rough cuts here, but we can look at the cuts in the scene and try to dissect why the editor made the choices that they made. So in this first moment, it cuts to a wide shot, and then this is the first wide shot from this angle in the scene, and it's as the mother brings up the topic of negotiations, which I think is pretty interesting because, it's the kids who are coming to negotiate with her, but this kind of gives her the power in this moment. This is also an example of eye tracing, as we see the mom looking at Roman, and then Roman taking his attention from the mom to Shiv, who lets out this big laugh and turns her attention to her mom, and then it cuts to her mom. So it's a great example of eye tracing. But I want to talk about the shadow cuts here. Why did the editor choose these two shots of the siblings? I think it kind of shows how they're feeling at the beginning of the scene. We see Roman, who seems to be a little bit on edge, kind of gauging how he should react based on how the people around him are reacting, versus his sister Shiv, who obviously is a little more comfortable, maybe less focused on the actual negotiations, and she thinks her mom taking control there is a little funny. So another concept that this scene showcases pretty well is the idea of speaker versus listener, which is showing how the editor chooses to highlight who's speaking and how the people around them are reacting. And through this we can see maybe how the editor is seeing the scene through which character's point of view. Now this might change throughout the scene, but moment to moment you can kind of identify that. And so looking at this point in the scene, Shiv is just agreeing with her mother, and her mother makes, snarky comment about how Shiv never agrees with her. So we cut to this next shot, where we see Shiv react to that, but then Roman literally pulls the focus of the audience with the camera in the same shot to him as he brings up the negotiations. And I think that this is pretty important here because it's not pulling the focus indirectly through a cut. It's literally moving the point of view and shifting the dynamic of the scene through here the lack of editing, but it was a choice to not cut there. So this next moment where the editor chooses not to cut comes as the mother leaves to get up to go to the kitchen. She brings up her new husband Rory, and Roman makes a remark about it. And him and Shiv, share a little sibling to sibling reaction there. And by not cutting back to the mother, we feel, that sense of connection between them. And also then her line at the end of it where she asks, well, what was that? Makes a little more sense because we don't see her react as this line is being said. So going back to the concept of speaker versus listener, we have this really great moment here. So Roman brings up his father possibly wanting to reopen, not wanting, but willing to reopen the divorce settlement. We have this really quick, just 1 second reaction shot from Shiv. She contemplates what that could be. Cut back to Roman. Back to Shiv as she shares her response. So this is another technique where, we show her having her realization and then cut back as she shares what she realized or what she was thinking about. So this next moment is all about eyes. The eyes of a character can tell us a lot. And in this case, we're gonna be looking at where they're focusing on and, what those connections might mean. So let's take a look at this moment. Here's Roman telling his mother what the numbers his father told him that he would pay her for her shares. She puts him down, telling him, you don't know what you're doing. We have this great reaction of him. And then we cut to Shiv, as she has this realization that Roman really doesn't know what he's talking about. And we see her, she says, yeah. And her mother, I think that's funny. We have this great little look towards Roman. And then this, where they're still sharing that eye contact, and then he's back to his mom and his food. So here we come to our next speaker versus listener moment. And Roman and his mom are talking, but we cut to a shot of Shiv and the mom, while Roman's still talking, which is super interesting, but it allows us to see Shiv's reaction to it, which then leads in to the next shot, which is a cut to her. And here we're gonna look at the eyes real closely. Watch how the eyes lead the camera. So here we go. She turns her attention to Roman, who's looking at her. Roman, still looking at her. Her mom's talking. So we cut to a shot of Shiv looking at the mom. Shiv makes another look towards Roman. We cut back towards Roman. Roman's looking at the mom. We cut to the mom. It's simple, but following where the eyes are can really help the viewer to immerse themselves into the scene and not get lost in the space, disoriented. So now we've come to probably what is my favorite cut in this scene. And I didn't realize how genius this was until I split up the camera angles onto different layers and saw which shots were taken from where. So here we have a little argument between Shiv and her mother about her not inviting for Christmas because of one time Shiv didn't come when she was 18. Cut to the shot of the mother in the kitchen. Then we cut to this reaction shot of Roman. But the best part about this is we cut to Shiv, except this is the same angle. So these are two separate takes, but it shows the magic of editing and how time and space can, be stitched together to create a moment that never even existed. But we get this great moment of Roman just reacting to this argument between the mom and Shiv. And it adds this layer of awkwardness and, more importantly, tension to the scene. So this last moment, just throwing here, it's a little bonus. This is me just appreciating Kieran Culkin's acting. He's just phenomenal in this show. We're going to be looking at the eyes again. And we're going to be looking at how the eyes play with the focus. So we're on the shot of Shiv. Pan to Roman. And now, again, Roman's drawing the camera, but now watch his eyes. Our attention's on Shiv, our attention's on the mother. Roman, mother, Shiv, mother, Shiv, mother, Shiv, as he's back and forth, back and forth. And this is really not the editor, but I had to include it because it's a great moment of the eye trace being used in a singular shot as Roman's kind of mirroring what the camera does. So, as you can see, the editors of the show, and obviously Jesse Armstrong, are masters of building up tension and holding it and holding it and holding it and letting a little go and then holding it, and they really just know what they're doing. And that can be seen through all of these various moments in this one scene where every single cut has a meaning, every single camera movement has a meaning, and even the actor's eye movements have meaning. It's genius, and I really appreciate the work that was put into the show. Thanks.